Good afternoon, everyone. I'm always talking about buying seeds because of the global reset, grid down, whatever situation, emergency. You should have hundreds and hundreds of pounds of seeds. They can be used in so many different ways, from cooking, but fast-growing, nutrition-dense microgreens is the way you want to go. From the trays, you can grow them in pots. I even used a plastic egg container for the amaranth. The wheat berries, you can sprout that into wheatgrass in the jar. You can even grow amaranth that you can buy in the store in trays. And these are chia seeds. You can turn almost anything into microgreens. So many options if you're stocked up and prepared for the changes. And just a quick word from this video's sponsor. You know, if you'd worked for a company for years before COVID came along and they let you go, you may have left some treasure behind. Your old 401k or IRA could be worth thousands, and it's still working for your old firm, not you. So if you're a bit uncertain about what the future holds right now and how you can convert your old 401k or IRA into a gold or precious metals-backed IRA, it's worth jumping on the phone and calling the team at Noble Gold. 877-646-5347, and the link's in the description box below. And as I've talked about before in many a video, the Farmers Co-op in your local county is where you can get these types of large bags, 50-pound bags of seed, non-GMO, ready to plant. All of it does sprout out into microgreens, or you can grow it yourself. Large bags on the left there are hard red winter wheat, about $16 each for 50 pounds. The peas, those are in the GrowPro bag. And if you look at the different kinds of peas, beans, and wheat berries, there's a plethora of options to use, grid down, some kind of lockdown, supermarkets closed, whatever it is. One of the biggest things is not having access to green vegetables. Not a problem if you're holding any types of seeds that you can turn into microgreens. Now the peas and beans generally going to turn into a softer broadleaf. Now you see here I'm just using 3 flower pots instead of using one long tray. So anything's an option if you're going to be in a pinch and be able to put something out in terms of microgreens to get that nutrient-dense green veggie into your body. And you see almost barely any soil there. And I was able to grow at least enough to cook 2 servings out of just one small pot here. And it took about 7 days to get to that height. Now you're going to find most beans and peas will mimic the same. And depending on the variety, in the back there, those are mung beans, those real stringy looking microgreens there. Those are already almost too long to cook on the stem. You can get the leaf out of this, but mung beans are going to be your least palatable and least functional, usable option. They turn into just stringy, inedible plant matter within 6 or 7 days, and you're only eating the leaf. At that point, you might as well just get the mung beans and use those for food in itself. Moving other to black-eyed peas, adzuki beans, and different types of beans. That thick broadleaf, the stems are really supple as well as the leaf. So if you let it go another couple days, I like to trim off where the bean actually sprouted out from. It's a little sour for me, but if you're going to be in an emergency food situation, you'll probably want to cook everything there. You can trim that right down to the stem, use that for compost. On the right here, I'm using store-bought non-GMO soybeans, and that's why they have that fuzziness on the leaf there. Now, this is going into trays, and there's so many different varieties of trays. We bought regular trays and just drilled holes into the bottom of them. And as you can see, different types of beans and peas going along the railing there. So you have an enormous amount of option. And look how much green matter you can grow in a very, very small space. You can protect that. You can do it in a windowsill. You can leave it in your house, totally protected. And it doesn't need full sunlight because it's in its infancy stage, just from the seed coming up to first leaf. And it needs only a fraction of the light that full plants would. So a few close-ups here of stems that are totally edible, as well as the leaves themselves. So if you're able to produce this at this quantity after a week in your home, you should have no problem providing for your family, your friends, bartering it, trading it. It's a different way to think about seed than just planting it in the garden or cooking it in a soup. This is your actual food source here. And whatever type of bean or pea, you're pretty much going to get something to grow out of it. Exception, black beans that I've never been able to get to grow. They're so finicky. But look at the nutrient dens. You can almost see how healthy that looks there in the frame. Now the caveat is if you let it go too long, it will actually grow this large in the microgreen tray. At this point, obviously, you're going to have to take them out. The roots are tangled. When you try to disconnect them, it's going to rip it up. And the better option is to plant this entire tray in the ground in one whole piece. You can separate it from the plastic, obviously. But on the bottom there, you can see we're already taking one cut, leaving it up a bit and only going for the juiciest of leaves. But that's in a perfect situation. Grid down or some kind of emergency, you can take the entire plant. The stems are edible as well. And whatever type of bean it is, go to the supermarket and look in the bean aisle of your supermarket. Now, that's going to be your most expensive option. You can order seed online too. Now, that's the second most expensive option. Or you go to your farmer's co-op and you get that for 50 pounds of hard red winter wheat for $16, or 50 pounds of beans or peas for $36, under $1 a pound. Your results are going to be the same, but look at the suppleness of those leaves and the stems. That is a lifesaver for sure. Now, another bargain that you're going to be looking at here is amaranth and chia. Amaranth's on the left and the chia seeds are on the right. Now, I put these in just a traditional herb shaker because the seeds are so small, it's really difficult to get them to come out in any sort of even fashion. You're going to have to put them in some sort of shaker. Now, understand, these seeds are so incredibly small. A 1 pound bag of amaranth, you could grow 100 trays of that easily. And the chia seeds, that's a superfood. If you mix it with water, you're getting all your nutrients. That's the one that kind of puffs up and gets gelatinous in the water. But you can grow this as well. So you have all these options for any kind of seed that you're looking at. Amaranth, obviously, you can cook that. That's an ancient grain. But this is what a seed tray looks like that I've done. I've experimented with a lot of different densities of the amaranth here. So this is just a slight sprinkling on it, and you can see about the density. And then when you really put it tightly together, this is what you get. So these are amaranths, microgreens. And we're talking about not even a teaspoon of seed to cover that from the back to the front and everything in between. And people might say, well, I don't have any of those flower pots. I don't have a seeding tray. What can I do? You can use literally anything you can put dirt and soil into to get microgreens to grow. Now, I was just doing literally anything I could that I had laying around to try to get this to grow. Egg cartons, incredible, but these are even plastic egg cartons. And then we were using these as little pre-grow cubes that then planted back in the ground or planted into a bigger pot. But once you do this, if the roots are already starting to tangle on each other, they're not going to grow that well, even if you transplant them. So after a transplant and letting them grow up about another 3-4 weeks, they started to get into these sort of dwarf variety of the amaranth. Still, small heads on that. You can trim that whole entire right down to the dirt and eat that. And when I say you can grow it in anything, this is just a cardboard box that was laying around, and the mung beans is where I went with that. So as long as it can hold soil, contain soil, and it won't fall apart because of the moisture, you can grow it in anything. Now here's a closer up of the chia seeds. They never really grow that tall. They're very finicky. You got to keep them in a cool place. They need misting about 4 or 5 times a day. So this is why I was using the coconut coir versus the straight soil on these chia seeds. Different substrate from medium to get them to grow out. And then here you can see the trays. Peanuts, also another good one. Raw peanuts that haven't been cooked and processed. If you can really get raw peanuts, those things are incredibly cheap. Less than $1 a pound. You can get peanut microgreens as well. Now back to the hard red winter wheat. Now barley works for this also. You can do grasses with this. Barley grass, wheat grass. Now I just used the jar, punctured a bunch of holes in the lid, threw 2 tablespoons of that wheat in that jar, and after a week you have this nutritionally dense. You can eat every part of that. Throw it in a soup and cook it. If it gets a little too long, you'll know you've gone too long because it'll get stringy, but it has a real sweetness to it. And if you've ever been to some of these health food stores, if you grow it in trays, wheatgrass, this is what they cut and juice. So if you have this grass that you've grown, the barley grass or the wheatgrass, you could cut it yourself, add it to salads, add it to your soups, and it is a superfood. So think about this in a grid down situation when you can't get to the store, you don't have any vitamins or supplements, people are getting sick or malnourished because they're not eating the right foods. You have a nutrient-dense source here that is a life-saving plant in front of you. $16 for 50 pounds. I used 2 tablespoons to get that entire jar full. What do you think 50 pounds would yield, and how much could you trade it? Now, the thing about the hard red winter wheat, you can grind that into flour also to use it then for cooking. So you have everything there. You can plant it for the nutritious grass. You can grind it for the food. There's all types of things you can do with that. And again, think about tradability. And this is just a small seed collection that I had tucked over in one of the parts of my older apartment on the top there. Buckwheat off to the top left. Had some good luck with the buckwheat. Chickpeas, not so much. They get a little stringy real fast. So if you stay in the bean and pea varieties, you're going to get a much better yield than almost anything else out there, unless you're going for the nutrient-dense microgreens of the chia seeds or the wheat grasses. Now, the thing I've never had luck with, ever, you're looking at it right here, black beans. I don't know how many umpteen times I have tried to grow black beans in a tray. Never did it work, not even once. I've never had luck even one time with black beans. It's just something about, they get a little bit, as you can see, the fungus growing around the mold. Something's in there. Even, I scraped off the top layer of soil so you could really see what's dense in there. So you're going to have some wins, you're going to have some fails, but that's what you learn. If it gets too stringy, you're going to understand. Harvest it 1 or 2 days earlier. You'll hit that sweet spot on the density, on the texture, on the flavor, on the sweetness, on the snap, on the crispness of it, all the suppleness of the leaves, and the tradability. If you're going to trade it, you're going to have that 1 day window of the perfection of that plant to move it on to somebody else to trade something else. So you might want to start taking notes in a notebook. And when you take this out to microgreens, and remember, everything you're looking at here took less than 7 days to grow. So we're not talking about years to do this. We're talking 3 to 5 to 7 days. So looking at it in the future and what could be some of these grid down scenarios, disruptions in supply chain, lockdown 2.0, it's all going to be multi-week or multi-month type of time frames. So this microgreen batch here, to get a seed pack and hold it in your house, 50, 100 pounds of seed, you can grow for your family, friends, neighbors, and community and trade that onward. So these are the things you're going to have to think about utilizing the seed storage that you have. How can you use it? Make a list of how you can use every single seed. How you can cook it in a soup, how you can grow it, how you can grind it, and how you can scale the value up on that. Because when it comes down to it, it's all about tradability. So I'm going to do a mind experiment with you here. This is 1 cup of bean. What's more valuable, 1 cup of dried bean in a cup in my hand, or this that you produced after 5 days from the same beans? What do you think the tradability factor is scaled when you turn it into this plant? Because food is going to be the most important thing moving through these emergencies. Water and safety, but food foremost. 2-week or 4-week emergency food supply, My Patriot Supply, and Adapt 2030. I do thank you for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. We're all in this together, and I'm just sharing some of my solutions that I have and have worked with personally, had good results, had bad results, everything in between. And I hope this video helped you speed that learning curve like 10x above what you could have done on your own. And I will see you next video. And all the images I took myself, so I don't have any links in the description box tonight. But I'll see you next time.